There are times in your business when you make an investment or buy a piece of investment property and it doesn't pan out the way that you thought it would. It costs more than you thought. It's taking longer than you thought. It's not quite as easy. And it might be stealing your peace and your joy and making you very frustrated. And you're starting to wonder if this is something that you should just cut your losses on, or do you keep putting time, energy, and money into it to see if you can turn it around and make something of it? So that's what we're going to dig into today. Hey, you leader, entrepreneur, business owner, solopreneur, whatever you call yourself, we know you're a visionary business builder, wealth seeker looking to combine a passion for doing good with leading consciously. It's time to shift from a traditional focus of pure wealth accumulation to one that integrates well-being and fulfillment. You're here for a purpose, and it's time to shine your light. So here we go. Welcome back to the Conscious Edge podcast. I'm Alicia St. Germain, your host and founder of The Conscious Edge, where I help women entrepreneurs get out of their own way so that they can build lives that are truly fulfilling, aligned with their soul purpose, and make money doing it. If you have been listening to this podcast for any amount of time and you have not taken a moment to leave a review, can I please ask you to take a moment now and leave that review so that it helps us to be able to reach more people just like you who are making a big difference in the world, making an impact, and it helps to get that feedback out there when we get more of those reviews. So please do that now if you haven't. And if you are new to us and you enjoy today's episode, please take a moment and hit subscribe or follow from wherever you are listening. We put these podcasts out every week. You hear me say we. Oftentimes I'm joined by my co-host, Jonathan Duggar. He is traveling and taking a little time off this summer, but I am so excited when he comes back. It's always a lot more fun to record these episodes with someone than doing it by myself. So with all of that being said, let's go ahead and hop into today's topic. I was meeting with a former client of mine, someone who I highly respect, and from time to time we get on the phone and we have a little tune-up session, essentially. And she came to me and she said, I need to run something by you. I'm having a little bit of trouble figuring out what my next step is and how to move forward on some decisions that I've made in my business that are not turning out the way that I had hoped. And I'm really not sure what to do next. So when you are faced with a decision that you've made in the past and you have to now maybe cut your losses or in order to regain your peace, or you have to make a choice to keep investing more time, energy, and money into it and see if you can turn it around, things can get a little muddled. You're not necessarily sure what your next steps are. You can get very indecisive. You can get into a spiral of beating up on yourself. And that's not serving you. That's not going to keep you in forward momentum. There's a lot of hard things that will come out of that moment. So what I want to do is give you really a process to stop that from happening. So the very first thing is, what I want you to understand is being an entrepreneur, by nature, by definition, it means taking on risk. And being the sole person, that person that takes that risk is taking all of that on for themselves, as opposed to being employed by someone else or something like that. So by nature, being a business owner is risky. Making investments is risky. And this kind of goes, making bad investments or having decisions not work out the way you thought, it kind of goes with the territory. One of my favorite books about money that really helped me understand this perspective, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, it really does a great job to explain that there is no real true formula for money, because you are not operating in a vacuum. You could have a strategy for investing, but you have no control over the environment and natural disasters that happen, wars that break out, societal shifts that happen, new announcements from, just look at our current political environment. You cannot control all of these things. And one thing that seems unrelated can set off a chain of events that you could look back in hindsight and link them all together, but you have no control over what's going to happen. The only thing that you can do is make the best decision you can with the information that you have. And nobody's perfect. So we're all figuring it out as we go along. You make the best decision that you can, and you learn in the process of making these decisions, and you do become a stronger investor. What happens, or what we have to be really careful of, is this, I guess I would say, like, there's this piece of sunk cost, right? So you've made the best decision that you could in that moment, and then you get into it and you figure out, this decision that I made is not the best decision, but I've already put time, money, and energy in this. And do I keep going down this path, even though it doesn't serve me, it doesn't serve my vision, it's not going to help me, purely because I've already put time, energy, and money into it? Or do I cut my losses, call it a learning experience, and move on? And you have to do some soul searching around that point. But very often we see people continue to stick with something that isn't supportive of their vision purely because I already put so much into it. And the ego just doesn't want to let it go. And then the worst part is that once you get through that painful experience that you very potentially made more painful for yourself, you start taking what you learned from that and carrying it over to every future decision that you make in your business and investing, and in a way that is not supportive, in a fearful or scarcity-driven way. Basically, you've formed a new big assumption based on this history that you have with some investments that you made that didn't go the way you thought they would. And there's a difference between learning and getting smarter and then making better decisions in your business, or being fearful. There's a big difference between the two. And so being able to work through in your mind which is which, to have the discernment, that's the word I'm searching for, have the discernment in your mind of what is my right next move based on what I now know, is really, really important. So the first thing I'd say to you is staying in this mindset of how it should have worked out is really toxic. It's painful when things don't work out the way they should. And we do it in a lot of places. We do it in investments that we've made, but we also do it in relationships that don't work out the way that we want to, or the way that we expect a certain way that people should act. We do it in so many places where in our mind, there's a way that it should work out. And when it doesn't, we can sometimes get in a cycle of being a victim to that and being upset, like it should have been this way. And we want to go back and we want to change the past, and we can't. When things don't go as you expect them to, if you can keep yourself at least neutral, if you can't find the gift in it, that's fine. At least if you can keep yourself neutral and realize that nothing is out to get you. And if you can even shift into how is this happening for me, that's really positive, but at least make it neutral. So it didn't work out the way you thought it was. Maybe the partnership was not a good fit, and initially you thought it was. You probably should have vetted the partner a little bit more. The investment, maybe you got a little swept up into getting the deal and it wasn't the best deal. And then you got into it and there was things about the deal that, were not were hidden from you. You didn't know they were there. You got into the rehab and like now it's coming to get you, right? And now you're like, oh, great, I'm over on my expenses. The market shifts. Something happens in the marketplace or in politically that changes the environment of your business. All of these things may happen. You sitting in it's not fair, this shouldn't have gone this way, if I had only known, you didn't. You've got to let that go so that you can move into what your next steps will be. It's not helping you to stay stuck. So that's one of those pieces that I would tell you that you're going to want to really work on managing your mind around. It is what it is. Now, what are we going to do about it? So that's the first thing. The second thing that I would say is sometimes there's going to be a period of time of you cleaning it up. So this happens a lot in real estate investing. I have watched, and it can happen in other businesses too. There's so much information out there. There are so many people in non-traditional education settings teaching people how to build wealth and create businesses or buy businesses. And so when you are looking for a better way in life, you may be one of those people who's like, I'm not going to stay stuck on this hamster wheel. I'm going to go look for a better way. And a lot of the programs that, especially the really bigger investment programs, they're not just teaching you one specific strategy. They may have like multiple strategies that they're teaching you. And so you end up doing a little of this, doing a little of that, doing a little of something else. And you end up with a portfolio that is very scattered. You've got maybe a couple different businesses, you're lending some money out, you have a short-term rental, you've got a long-term rental, you've done some flipping. And so you've got all these different things that you're doing because you want to diversify your portfolio and you want to take advantage of every single opportunity that comes to you. But not every opportunity is actually aligned to what your strengths are, what you enjoy doing. You haven't even built a team to support you in the ways that you are weak. And so you have all these different asset classes and all these different in opportunities, and they all have different end users, different customers on the end side, and different systems and protocols that you would follow. And so it makes it really difficult to build a team around any one thing because you've got so many different things going on. And that happens to a lot of people because you're trying things out to see what you like best. But there really does come a point when you need to focus down in order to take this, in order to be a high performer and get a lot done, you've got to be really focused. And that's part of really taking a holistic approach to it, is looking at what is your vision? What do you want for your life? I can't tell you how many times people would be coached into doing wholesaling, and they were individuals who were high performers in their career who were really looking to build a retirement for themselves and not necessarily looking for replacing their job. And then they would be taught wholesale because that was like a really easy way for you to make money in real estate. And they were like, but I don't have the time to go out and just devote all my life to finding deals because I've already got a full-time job. Someone who has money might maybe be better suited into more of a passive investing role, or something that is not going to depend on them to have another earned income strategy. They're really looking for a place to put money. Versus someone who hates their job, does not want to do their job anymore, is looking for real estate to replace their income. That would be great for someone to wholesale because they could actually earn income while they are looking for the right investment properties that are going to build long-term wealth for them. So oftentimes, really, I have not seen people really look at what are my needs and what do I want? And how does certain asset classes, certain strategies, certain businesses fit into what I want to do with my life? And I think that discernment is really, that's going to apparently be the word of the podcast, but that's the piece that you really want to pay attention to. So there's going to be a period of time often when you've made some decisions in different things that you want to invest and that you've invested in, and now you've got to clean it up. I was taking my son to farm camp every year. They go to this nonprofit in our area that is a working farm, and they teach the kids about where our food comes from and about preserving the planet and how we can do sustainable farming. And they've always gone to it. And it's a place that I go, and it's just like my happy place. And we all just look forward to it so much. My point being, there's the director that runs the nonprofit has another piece of property that she is essentially rehabbing and having, and I'm not going to use the right terminology for it, but they want to get it as a preserve, like a swamp land preserve. And there's a number of things that you need to do to go through to get that status. So for many years, or several years, she's been working on the property, and we were discussing how about 3 years ago, they had to go in and they had to clear out a lot of the invasive species that were in that area, and then prune and take care of the red buds that naturally grew in that area. And she's like, it was like 3 years ago, and this is the first year now I'm actually seeing the red buds are doing something, like they're really starting to flourish. And my comment to her was, isn't it interesting how impatient we get waiting for the results of the fruits of our labor? And yet nature reminds us that sometimes we just have to slow down and be patient and wait for things to recover. But we get so impatient with the waiting period that sometimes we get our hands in there and we start trying to force things to happen. And all that does for you is it creates burnout and it creates frustration. And sometimes, because you're trying to fiddle with things instead of just wait and be patient, you start making decisions that actually continue to perpetuate the problem, especially if you have some big assumptions running in the background. If you're new here and you don't know what a big assumption is, it's a programming that runs in the unconscious that affects your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And it's based on old belief systems. And as you have painful moments, maybe some of these investments that you've made, you're going to make some new big assumptions. We're always making new big assumptions, and it's the body's way of keeping you safe and avoiding those bad feelings. If you're not tending to them, they will run the show. So what happens is you get in there and start fiddling with things around your big assumptions, and you can actually make the problem worse. And there are periods of time when sometimes it's just time to rest. Nature does it. And wait and let things recover. And you may be in a spot where you can maybe move a little bit slower, but because you have this, I got to move, I got to scale, I got to grow, I got to keep up with everyone else, you make it harder for yourself. And then there are times when it is time to grow and it is time to go and run and do things. So the reason I bring this up is because in this particular situation, it was a situation where, because the investing environment in real estate has changed recently, and there were less deals available and numbers were not penciling out, this particular investor got a little bit bored waiting, and instead of just resting and relaxing, made some decisions to try some new things. Now, it's totally fine to try some new things. However, one of the things that served me really well is to have 1 to 3 focuses per quarter. And sometimes I have the same focus from quarter to quarter to quarter. And if there's something new I'm taking on, what I have always found is do not take on more than one new thing in a quarter. So you can have like two other things that you're focused on, but they're like old hat for you, something that you can do with your eyes shut. And then you've got this one new thing. If you are trying to learn multiple new things at the same time, your attention will be split. If you say doing something in your business is like old hat for you, but only if you're the one doing it, and then you try to add on something else, if you're the one doing that other thing that's old hat for you, chances are it's going to suffer while you're trying to figure out the new thing. So really thinking about where your attention needs to be, and then building team and systems and processes and protocols so that it can function without you is really key before you go on and learn something else. So having things on a little bit more autopilot before you take your focus off is really essential as well, because then you can actually break other parts of your business because you're not focused on it. So that is a really big piece for people. So this particular person like kind of lost focus a little, or got a little bored, right? And maybe you're like this. You get a little bored. You like new things. You like learning. And so you go off and you try some things, and it can end up being at a detriment. We actually have to get a little bit comfortable with boredom. Being able to rest and relax in our business when the market cycle is not where we need it to be, especially when we're talking about real estate, markets cycle. So being either taking a rest on the asset class because it's not the right time in your market, finding a different market where it does work, or just finding something different to do, but staying solely focused in one area, knowing that you've already built up your systems and processes. Like, be careful. I think what I want to say is be careful with boredom, because it can get you into trouble, just like kids. When my kids are bored, they get themselves into trouble, and you could do the same thing. So watch out for those big assumptions that say like being bored is bad, or moving slow and resting is bad, because it can get you into doing things that you're going to have to pay the price on later on. So patience, all that to say patience, right? All right. So now you have these few things first. Now, when you're deciding what to do with a decision that you've made, a business or an investment that you've made that is not serving you anymore, it's stealing your peace, it's keeping you up at night, it's not the most profitable, it's taking your time, energy, and money to run. And if you had that time, energy, and money to put elsewhere, you would be happier. You'd probably make more money. You'd be more in flow. It would feel more on purpose. But you're grappling with, do I try to turn this around or keep doing this? Or do I just let this go and not worry about the loss or the break even, and let the time and energy that I put into it be a learning lesson? It's not wasted time. Sometimes we think something only has value if it made us money. And the truth is, value is more than just money. Value can be the lessons that you've learned, who you became in the process of doing the thing. There's a lot more that every experience you have brings to the table than just money. Money is one piece, and it's an important piece, but it's not the only piece. So one of the questions that I asked her was, okay, so if you had stayed bored and not invested in these other things, where would you be today? And her response was, well, I would have a lot more money and I would be a lot more rested. And so it would not have hurt her to just rest through this market cycle for her particular asset class. And that's sometimes really hard to reconcile. There's like a grieving, essentially, that may happen. But remember, it is what it is. It's certainly understandable the grief that you feel, but we cannot change it. So just feel it. It is what it is. And now let's make some decisions here. The reason that I asked her that question was to help her learn that there's a cost to not just sticking with boredom, not just resting. There's actually a cost to it. So when we look at what would have been different if you made a different choice, it isn't from the perspective of beating yourself up. It is from the perspective of what was the cost of this decision so that next time I make different decisions and I don't lose focus. That is the only reason for asking that question. Now, the next question that I asked was, okay, so if you were to unload this right now, what would that look like? So if you're thinking about something that you have, if you were to close the business, let go of part of the business, sell the real estate, whatever it is, right now, what does that scenario look like? And then how do you feel? So if you feel like relieved, like a weight's been lifted off of your shoulders, I'm going to follow that thread and say, great. Okay, you feel relieved, a weight's lifted off of your shoulders. Okay, what did you learn? And what would that free you up to do next? And so we follow that scenario. We follow that scenario to see how would that play out? How do you think that will play out? And how do you think, feel, and what do you think, feel, believe about that particular path? Okay, now I'm going to ask a different scenario. And this is a lot of the work that I do with my clients, is just helping them sort through all of the thoughts that are in their head by asking really good questions and then helping reflect back what the different lines are. So I'm not the one telling you necessarily what to do. You already know what to do. It's reflecting back to you and pulling the information out in a way that makes it really clear for you. So now I'm going to take her on a different scenario. Okay, great. Well, let me back that up. So if it was like peace, I feel relieved, then I'm going to go all the way through that scenario, see what that feels like. If I get like disappointed, frustrated, all right, so if selling it or letting it go makes you feel disappointed, frustrated, something bad, let's follow that line. All right, now you don't get rid of it. You're going to keep going with it. My next question is, how long will you continue to put time, energy, and resources into it in the hopes of, or what is the hopeful outcome? So I'm going to ask, okay, what's your vision for this property? What's your vision for this business? What do you think its potential still is? If you feel disappointed or you feel frustrated, like, what do you think the potential still is? All right. You're going to think about that. What's the potential? Great. If that's the potential, how long are you willing to put time, energy, and money to create that outcome? And if you hit that time frame, let's say a year, if you hit a year and you still end up having to sell it at a loss, break even, whatever it is, are you going to be okay with that? Are you going to be able to accept that you put another year of time, energy, and money into that thing, that investment, only to break even or even potentially take a loss? Because remember, we don't know what's going to happen over the next year, but can you be okay with that? Can you say, yes, this was a choice that I made and I'm good with it because I had to give it a shot? And if the answer is yes, I'm okay with it, great, go for it. But if the answer is, I don't like how that feels, don't go into something saying, I'm willing to give it a year and be attached to it having to be profitable, or it has to turn around, or it has to be better. Because if you're attached and you get a year from now you're like, great, I wasted a whole year more. So you've got to be okay with the fact that, yes, this is what I'm willing to continue to invest with it. If that's a yes, great. Maybe that's an option for you. The other thing I'm going to ask to really test you is, okay, so during that year that you're putting that additional time, energy, resources into that investment, what is it costing you? What might you miss out on as a result of you continuing to keep your focus in this area? All right. So you're going to think about, what might it cost me staying with this in this particular path? Are you okay with paying that price? Because everything in life is choices. It's a series of choices that we make, and we are in control. We don't always have the best choices, and we can't control what's happening in the environment around our investment choices that we make, but we always have choices. And so it's just a matter of choosing what we're willing to risk and what we're not willing to risk, and what keeps you up at night and what helps you sleep at night. So are you willing to pay that price? If you miss out on that thing, are you willing to pay that price for you to continue down that path with that investment? And if you're like, yes, I'm willing, that's how it is, then great, do that. If you're like, no, that feels terrible, sometimes then we go back to, okay, maybe it's better if I unload it, or maybe we need to shorten the time frame. So all I'm doing is really running a series of scenarios in your mind and checking in with, how are you feeling? What are you thinking? What are you making it mean? Is this your ego wanting to look good, being committed to how it should be when it's not? Or is this truly moving you into an aligned place? Sometimes there's more coaching involved that needs to happen because you have a big assumption that's running, something that's actually holding you back. Sometimes it's me saying, well, it looks like you're actually headed in the right path. You're just not being patient. You think you need to do something. You think you need something, but you just have to wait for the red buds to recover after clearing out the invasive species. So sometimes it's just you're already on the right path, but you just needed to hear your own voice. And that is one of the things I think that I do with clients, is I really help them hear their own voice, get discernment, figure out where they actually have gaps in knowledge base, in skill set, in team, figure out where their gaps are, but also to figure out where the mindset needs to be adjusted to come into alignment with what they truly want long-term for their life. Because it's really easy to make decisions in the moment for some people. They're impulsive and they need somebody to say, like, hey, hang on, that's not in alignment with your long-term vision. Tell me how this aligns with your long-term vision, or are you just trying to fill something? I had someone say to me the other day that oftentimes in your peer groups, if you are a really strong person, your peer group may tell you something, like they will point out your blind spot, but the moment you justify it, they like back down from you. I am not that person. Like, if I see you really getting in your way, I will say something. Now, whether or not you hear me is another thing, because I have some people who still like to touch the stove, even though I say things to them. But I am always going to tell you what I see and where the blind spot that you have. And when you're open to really hearing that, I'm not looking for my clients to like me all the time. I'm looking for them to get the results that they want in their business. And so I give the loving hard truths. And so that's one of the things that I pride myself on, is being honest with people when they are getting in their own way. And that's something that oftentimes a friend group or a peer group won't do for you. It's very few people who have a handle on their own big assumptions enough to let go of their people pleasing or their concern that you won't like them, or be able to handle that they pissed you off because they told you the truth and then they want to backpedal it. Like, you have to be open to that feedback. So I hope that helps you. If you've got something in front of you that's not working for you, I hope that this will help you to make a better decision going forward, and to make that decision today or within the next couple days. Because the longer you stay complacent and the longer you stay in the should-haves and the longer that you don't do anything with this and just put your head in the sand, the more it's going to cost you energy, frustration, time, and money. And it's really about resilience and flexibility and being able to shift fast, that it's going to give you that edge in your business. So with all of that being said, I'm sending you so much love. And if Jonathan were here, he would say, be well. Thanks for listening to the Conscious Edge podcast. Make sure you subscribe and take a moment to be kind and share this episode with someone you care about. Leave a review to help us bring more compassionate leaders building businesses and creating wealth to the table. And for show notes, head over to consciousedge.com/podcast. This podcast and the linked materials are presented solely for general information, educational, and entertainment purposes, and should not be taken as personal or medical advice or any kind of mental health treatment. Please consult a medical or mental health professional if you feel you need such services. Please be advised that all investing and entrepreneurial endeavors involve risk, and the use of the education and information on this podcast and linked materials is at the user's own risk.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.